Welcome to Interesting Enough. He is Trey. I am Nolan. Thank you guys so much for joining us once again. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you. We are on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Trey, man, we got a lot to get into today, man. What's going on? How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. Like you said, we got a lot to get into. I keep saying this, but it's getting sadder by the day. We're getting to the end of the football season.
Right?
Yeah, I'm disappointed, but that does mean that we're getting some of the best games of the year so far. And if I have to be honest with you, last weekend's, it lived up to the hype to me.
Yeah, we're going to talk about those games for sure. We thought we was going to talk about just NFL stuff, but we had some NBA news drop basically back-to-back today, so we're going to get into that later on. But, Trey, let's start with the article you sent a couple of days ago. I'm gonna let you really bring it up. I don't know if I didn't see this one all over the place. Besides when you actually sent it, so I didn't see all over the internet. But what's up with these dudes or this dude and the baby mama?
Yeah, but don't say these dudes.
Yeah, I want to be specific. What's up with a dude and his baby mama?
So it's one particular dude. It was published on the New York Post. He's a 22-year-old man, and I guess he happened to get 5 women impregnated at the same time, or roughly around the same time. So you know what we all do when you get your girl pregnant, you have a baby shower. Well, I guess he came up with the good idea of saying, you know what, y'all are all going to be having the babies around the same time. Let's just have all 5 of you guys have a joint baby shower. No, I don't even know what to say to this. Like, my main thing, and I'm not sitting here hating on the females, but I'm like, why would you even agree to this?
All right, listen, I'm gonna be real. I hate to say it because I don't even know the dude, but they knew who they was dealing with.
You know what? You're right. That's 100%. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
Because if you think about it, if the dude that would do this, this ain't the first time he done did something like. You you know who it is. Like and first of all, we all know people like that. Whether it's a friend, a family member, a brother, cousin. Like, come on, we know the people that be on to this type of stuff. Like, to be on this type of time. Now, I will say, to be fair, and you and I agree with this. I ain't gonna lie. For a person that believes in efficiency, like this actually is the most efficient thing you could do.
And save you money because you know I'm cheap. So like, hey, let's knock it all out at one time.
And listen, I don't care how much money he has. I'm sure the dude is not a millionaire, but 5 baby showers is 5 baby showers. Like that, I think that's pretty universal, no matter what, where you sit on the financial spectrum. So that was going to be an expensive endeavor to begin with. My whole thing is, let me not ask how he's getting 5 people pregnant at the same time. I want to more say maybe why. Are you getting 5 people pregnant at the same time? Because I find it really hard to believe if you get 5 people pregnant at the same time, that some of this wasn't premeditated. Like, no one is that bad, bro. Like 5 people, all within the same time frame, or short, within some sort of time frame. Yeah, that's the part that's confusing to me.
It does seem like a lot, but I mean, again, he's 22 years old. And some people are just reckless. Like, they're just not going to wrap it up. They're just reckless. I don't know what to tell you. And if you're talking about a 22-year-old that's reckless, I can see it happening.
And I don't know, based on the photo, everybody seemed copacetic, though.
They did.
Like, everybody.
See, first of all, why they took the picture? Because I would have never been in the picture with him. I'd have been like, nah, you tripping.
You know it was his idea. You know it was his idea to take a photo.
But they ain't have to agree to it.
They have to agree. Well, listen, let's just be fair. They should start agreeing to stuff as soon as they can, and the type of life that they've got set up for themselves. Can we just agree on that? They should start agreeing on things. Like, them agreeing on a picture tray is really going to be the least of the issues. All right, so like, start agreeing on stuff now, right? Because we can obviously see this going really hectic. But man, from an efficiency standpoint, I'm down for it if you're going to do it, because the only other scenario you do this is, you're going to get 5 different dates. It's not going to be as special of a moment where his family got to come to 5 different events. He got to be at 5 different events. Then you're going to have, these women feeling some type of way if maybe their event isn't first or second or last, or feeling unimportant or not important enough. He went to avoid all these issues, and he's like, let's do it all at one time. And to be fair, Trey, I don't know what his job is. but we got to put him in some internal affairs, because if he's able, if he's able to speak with 5 women and get them on the same page for something like this, we might be able to solve world hunger. Like, I'm so serious with him at the forefront, because I don't know anybody else that can handle 5 women and get them all on the same page in such a vulnerable situation, like, you know, them being pregnant in general and them being seemingly happy. Like, we got to have him on the forefront. He got to be in. I don't know who's going to get voted in the election trade, but somebody got to get him in the cabinet. Somebody got to get him in the cabinet.
Listen, all I'm gonna say is this too. I do want to add this point to it. He's only 22. How many kids do you think he's going to end up with in his entire life?
Can I ask a better question? How many kids do you think he got already?
Oh,
like, we don't even know if he don't. What is 3?
No, I'm thinking. You think he got more than 3?
Oh, you think he has 3 already, and then plus this 5 now?
Yeah.
Man, 3 by 22. I was gonna say 1. I was gonna try to be nice and be like, he probably got a kid already. I don't think this is his first kids. I don't think, like, if you move on, like, I don't think this is his first kid. Like, I kind of want to, like, do some research after this and follow up on the next podcast, but I don't think this is his first kid. Like, that would be my guess. Because first of all, you way too comfortable with the whole baby shower and gender reveal and all that process to be doing a joint one. He probably already got the balloon guy on speed dial. He probably already got everything lined up and good to go. He probably got different fits already scheduled. He got the food catering already done. Yeah, like, nah, this ain't his first kid. This ain't his first kid. I'm sorry. This ain't
no.
Now,
when you like this, you on demon time. This is not your first kid.
Now, maybe this is not his first kid. Maybe he had a kid with one of them, the other ones before. Maybe it's not a different, a 6th woman or something like that. Who knows? But, man, the way he's moving, I don't know if he's the kingpin of his city or he the person that the city say stay away from. But listen, I gotta applaud the efficiency. But I'm kind of curious. I think I'm gonna follow up on that because, yeah, it's a lot of follow-up questions I can go with this, and we don't have enough details or time on the podcast. But I'm gonna follow up at some point and try to find out what he's got going on. But let's get into some sports. Obviously, that's what we're here for. Let's get into the NFL. I guess we'll start the NFL. I know we said we are gonna do that first. Trey, your boy Lamar has got his shot.
Yes.
Let's do the AFC first. Yeah, Lamar, your boy Lamar's got his shot to finally get to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs snuck by the Bills. First of all, before we even get to that matchup, anything you want to comment? Because I know we've already heard it past couple of days. Anything you want to comment specifically on the Bills-Chiefs game? Like any big takeaways? I know we've talked about the game in nausea, but just want to give a moment to that too, because that was a great game.
Well, yeah, I just want to say I hope that's not lost. I hope that we just recognize how great of a game that is. And I do want to say, I know Josh Allen, a lot of people are talking about that, the way he was pushing the ball in that last drive where he had Stephon Diggs, I think, on like a short 5-yard in route that he could have hit him on.
Yep.
At the end of the day, though, you live with the best of Josh Allen, and sometimes you get the worst of Josh Allen. But without him playing as he was playing, you wouldn't even be in that position. And truth be told, I just have to give, I've earned another level of respect to Patrick Mahomes. Like Josh Allen, he really just might have came up in the wrong era. Kind of how we talked about players when they were going against Michael Jordan, like a Charles Barkley or others. Like maybe he's just going against the greatest of all time. And right now, I'm going to say this at the very least, at least Patrick Mahomes, he's on that trajectory of being one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. So I think, I don't think there's anything to take away from Josh Allen. I think he just ran into the wrong person at the wrong time. I think it's just kind of that simple.
Okay, so here's my thing with the Bills. I think this iteration of the Bills window is closed, Trey. And when I say this iteration, Josh Allen's going to be there, a couple of the mainstays, but they may have to shake things up. And that's what happens when you are in the era with the LeBron, with the Michael Jordan of this era. So that's not necessarily his fault, but they got to switch some things up. In relation to the game, I agree you got to live and die by Josh Allen. But we're not going to act like it wasn't just a missed field goal here. Like, it was a missed field goal. That's not Josh Allen's fault. Listen, Trey, you and I have talked about Stephon Diggs on multiple occasions with his complaining. That 65-yard dot, he got to catch that. I'm sorry. He just got to catch that. Like, it is what it is. Like, listen, like I've come on here and complained about Tyreek Hill, who, as you know, I believe is the best receiver in the NFL. Even he's had drops, and I had to get on here and talk about. If I got to get on there and talk about Tyreek Hill, that makes every play possible. Diggs, you was in there complaining every time when Josh Allen wasn't getting you the ball. Last year in the playoffs with the Bengals, we all know the photo. You got to make that catch. All right, Trent Sherfield, you not a great receiver or anything like that. You was talking crazy when you beat the Dolphins because that's your former team. You got to catch that ball for your boy Josh Allen. It just seems like the Bills as a team collectively don't make the big enough plays when they need them that the Chiefs always seem to make on both sides of the ball. And that's the problem. And we could get nitpicky. Yeah, should he have thrown that ball to Stephon Diggs on the shallow cross? Yeah. Could he have got a little closer for field goal range? Instead of like a 44-yard field goal, maybe run for it? Yeah. Should he have made that better throw with who was it? I don't know if it was Kincaid or Shahir, somebody that was running across the middle in the end zone, the one that he threw short. Yeah, he should have made that throw too. But at the end of the day, they did their job. The kicker didn't make a kick. Let's be honest though, even if the kicker made the kick, Trey, do you believe? I'm pretty sure you believe Patrick Mahomes at one time out and over a minute left was probably going to drive anyway.
Yep.
Let's just call it. Let's just call it what it is. Like, so you know what I mean? He's the most clutch quarterback in NFL history based on the numbers. So it's nothing to be ashamed of with the Bills. The problem is the AFC is not getting any older, at least fast enough. And the AFC is always going to be good, at least for the foreseeable future, with the amount of good teams and quarterbacks.
Yeah, because I think everybody's forgotten about Cincinnati. But once Joe Burrow gets healthy, we know what they do.
Well, how about this? You guys, how about teams that weren't even in contention this year that are going to be around? You got Cincinnati. How about if the Jets, Aaron Rodgers is halfway decent? You're going to have to play him, right? Justin Herbert, if he gets a coach, you have to deal with him, right? So, those are three teams right now that are, and then at some point you figured, I know you're not the big Trevor Lawrence guy, but at some point you figure he's going to be in at least some playoff games.
Oh, yeah. I'm not the biggest fan, but I think, at some point they're going to be better than what they are now. Correct.
Right. So those are teams that weren't even in the mix this year. And then that's not even mentioning, look, say however you feel about Tua, the Dolphins are seemingly going to be a good team regardless. So you're going to have to play them at some point. It may be in Miami, but you're going to have to play them. And then, of course, we got Lamar. So it's not going to get any easier. And I just think the Bills are at this point where they can't get over the hump. And that's a problem. You're going to have to get over the hump in the years where it's time for you to get over the hump because you may not always have the hump to get over, if that makes sense. You may not always have this opportunity. So I don't know if the Bills window is closed, but it is something to really, really consider. Now, going forward to the Baltimore game and Kansas City, I'm going to just go flat out and say it, Trey. Not only do I think this is Baltimore's situation lose, I think they're going to beat them.
No, I think so.
I think this is the opportunity to beat Patrick Mahomes with this team with some injuries and obviously the weapons not being as good as they used to be. I think Lamar and them are rolling on all cylinders. They shook off the rust from last week. They're playing at home. Everything is in their favor. Now, that being said, the pressure is also wholeheartedly on Lamar Jackson to go ahead and close the deal.
But see, I'm not sure about
Patrick Mahomes. Well, this is why I say it. The pressure's not on Patrick Mahomes. He's already got 2 Super Bowls. If he loses this, all we're going to do is be like, look, man, it was great for him to even get to this point with no receivers, playing on the road. This team probably shouldn't have even been in the AFC Championship game when they got that far. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's get Mahomes some weapons and we'll retool. What are you going to say if Lamar doesn't get it? You're the number 1 seed. You're the best team in the NFL. You smacked the other best team in the NFL in the NFC in the 49ers. So you're really not even worried about anybody in the NFC. I mean, this is probably the best year of your career. You've had the most weapons you've had, the best offensive coordinator, probably the best defense. I mean, there's really nothing more that the Ravens can put together to set you up for success. He's got to finish the deal, and it starts with beating Kansas City on Sunday.
See, and I follow you, but I think if he does lose, which I don't expect him to, but if he does, what you say is, man, he lost to Patrick Mahomes. Like, I think it's just that simple. That's why I'm saying I think the pressure is 50-50 because I think Patrick Mahomes, he's now on a pedestal where we're mentioning him in the same breath as the Peyton Mannings, as the same breath as the Joe Montanas or the Tom Brady's. So I think there's still a certain amount of pressure on him just to go out and win. I think a lot of people still don't respect Lamar Jackson enough yet, so I don't think it would be taken well if he lost to Lamar Jackson. Now, if he loses to Lamar Jackson and Lamar goes and wins the Super Bowl, then I think in hindsight we might look at it a little bit differently. But I think if he loses on Sunday, I think that a lot of people will be out with pitchforks to come out and attack him. Now, again, with that all being said, they was going to do that
anyway, though. They was going to probably do that anyway.
I mean, they were, but I'm just saying, like, they would have had some better points. I wouldn't agree with them, but they would have had better points. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, I think, again, like you said, a lot of pressure is on Lamar. But I think, I mean, not just the offense, but that defense is really well suited to beat anybody. I know that anything can happen on any given Sunday, and if you let Patrick Mahomes get hot, he is one of the few players in the league, along with Lamar, along with Josh Allen, that can beat you by themselves. So you do have to be prepared for that kind of X factor player. But I still think that Lamar, I think he just, like you say, he's firing all cylinders. That team is gelling well. I still think they come out and I think they handle business. I do want to say one thing though. This is why you should have gave Lamar weapons a few years ago, because I still
Yeah.
feel like he wasted 2, maybe even 3 good years where you had a chance to actually contend, but you didn't have anybody out there. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to make a long argument about that.
But let's be fair though. They did try on some weapons and just missed.
They
So
did.
I
You're
ain't gonna
right.
say that they never tried. So sometimes they just didn't hit on the picks. Also, too, this was the best chance for them to get this done in a down Kansas City year. So that's a team that you're gonna have to really go through. And a lot of their weapons are young. I mean, Zay Flowers is young. You know what I'm saying? Bateman is young. Odell's not that young, but you still can get him for another year or so before you eventually get somebody else. They already retooled with another tight end. We thought Mark Andrews was the problem. Then
Whew.
you got this guy Likely out here balling. You know what I'm saying? So, listen, I mean, the Ravens are in a good spot. And when you got that AFC Championship game, or in this case, the entire playoffs coming through your home field, you got to take advantage of that. You just absolutely have to take, and it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, Patrick Mahomes trade takes advantage of it every year. AFC Championship game is always an Arrowhead. I mean, he only lost the one. Well, he got still lost twice. One to Brady, and then one to Joe Burrow. But other than that, I mean, at least they put the ball in their own hands to have a home playoff game when it matters most. So I think that's the big deal when it comes to Lamar. I think that's the reason why, because he's going to be in the playoffs every year. He's going to be in contention every year, but it's not guaranteed that you're going to be the 1 seed every year. Things happen, injuries happen, right? The season doesn't always go your way, and you might mess around and be having to play you might be mess around and have to play on the road the entire playoffs. And I think that's just always a tougher hill to climb, no matter who it is. But I got them. I got Baltimore. Now, what's the path for Kansas City, Trey? Is it just keep the game close and then try to have Mahomes heroics late in the game, or is it like jump on them early? Like, what's the Kansas City path if they do win this game?
I think that they had to get Pacheco going. As somebody that's watched the Ravens throughout the season, they don't have the best running defense. So I think that's
Mm,
something you have to keep in mind. Get Pacheco, get that ground game running, kind of keep him off guard. But then also, I think he's just going to have to rely on Patrick Mahomes to really show his greatness. Like you mentioned, they don't have the same weapons that they've had in the past. They don't have a Tyreek Hill. They don't even have a Juju Smith-Schuster. Uh, Travis Kelce. I know he had a good game last game, but I would say throughout the year he's starting to show some signs of slowing down. So you just don't have the offensive weapons that you once had. So I think that you're just going to have to hope that Patrick Mahomes can go supernova again, put the team on his back, along with Pacheco. They can get that ground game running. And then if they can keep the game close, at the end of the day, if Patrick Mahomes has the ball in his hands with the minute and 30 seconds left and it's a tie game, who do you expect to come out on top?
oh yeah, I mean at that point,
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. If they
that.
can just keep it close, I think that the
Mhm.
pressure would kind of get at the Ravens, and I think that Patrick Mahomes and his Chiefs team, a team that's used to playing in these high pressure situations, I think that they could come out on top.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And then I will say for the Ravens, if they can get pressure on Mahomes, because we've seen that's the only thing. If you can get consistent pressure, now Mahomes is good when you blitz and stuff, but that pressure that kind of that the Bucks had on him in the Super Bowl, he's just running around.
Yeah,
Now they obviously have a better O line, but they may be missing Joe Tooney, who's one of their Pro Bowl offensive linemen. So if he's out, that's going to be a huge factor for the Chiefs too, because. I mean, look, Mahomes can't block for himself and catch the ball and everything. So if you can have him running around, I mean, that's at least your best chance. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, he doesn't have the previous weapons, but I fully expect Baltimore to get this done. I'd be disappointed if they don't, because I want nothing more than Lamar to be hoisting the Super Bowl trophy against the haters for sure. So I'm excited for that. Let's go to the NFC. We got the Lions. I guess almost improbable, if you will, with the 49ers. I mean, what are you looking forward to this matchup? I mean, if you want to take it a step back, anything that surprised you with that 49ers game and squeaking it out against the Packers, or anything that, you know, surprised you in any of the matchups to get to this point?
Well, first I was just surprised how well the Packers were able to move the ball on that 49ers defense. I mean, I know they're not Baltimore, so they're not known for their defense, but I thought the defense was a little bit better than that. But the secondary seemed to get kind of gashed up there. But I think the biggest surprise was just kind of how off Brock Purdy was. And I know Debo went down early in the game, but it's still even with that being said, I didn't think that he would be affected that much by missing Debo, but apparently he was. And I'm kind of curious.
I told you.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm kind of curious because Debo is like, it sounded like he's kind of 50-50 now. So I'm like, if he's kind of hobbled or you don't even have him, what does Brock Purdy look like in this game coming up? And I'm not saying I'm the biggest Brock Purdy fan, but I think he's a little bit better than maybe what you give him credit for. But I will say your point was proven all into that last drive where he was able to come up 6 or 7 and lead them to score that touchdown. But up until that point, your point had been proven. Like he kind of looks like a really good game manager in that system, but that's it, game manager in that system.
And listen, I don't want to make it a negative thing like Cam Newton. That's his job. And that's what, for real, you need Cam.
Yeah, he went a little overboard.
Yeah. And that's his job, and he does his job very well. And I will give him credit for this. When things hit the fan, he doesn't panic. And he still finds a way to like come back and make plays. He's very resilient. And I do like that trait in a quarterback. So I'm gonna give him credit. But listen, it was raining. It wasn't great, situation. And he just didn't really look that good. And there was a couple plays, Trey. There's a couple picks that the Packers left out there too.
Man, they left 2 or 3 out there.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, this isn't really a game that you want to get into with the Lions. And they're listen, I think the Packers probably are better defensively. But listen, if the thing about the Lions, they can kind of control that clock if they get to running the ball and stuff like that, and they can just limit the amount of possessions. And that's the thing that scares me if I'm the 49ers. It's like, we have all these names like Bosa and Chase Young, but we're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. We're not stopping the run. And it's like, hey, we're the defense with all these Pro Bowl names, but we're not getting the job done. And the one thing we do know about the Lions, they have that offensive line. We do know that. So they are going to be able to block, right? And if you can block for Jared Goff, he's shown you that he can be a good NFL quarterback, better than what most people think. Now, I'm still going to pick the 49ers in this game. I just think that they're too loaded. And even if Debo doesn't play, if he's 50-50, I got to think that, Purdy can make enough plays with Kittle and McCaffrey and the rest of those guys that they'll be able to, beat them at home. But it's not a foregone conclusion. But I just think it's a tough matchup for the Lions. They're on the emotional high, but they're not really a great road team. Now, San Francisco is not necessarily like some crazy environment with some crazy weather or anything like that. So, I mean, they should be fine.
But it seems like Brock Purdy struggles in the rain. So if it starts raining a little bit, I mean.
Right. Well, now, I mean, I looked at the forecast. It looks clear.
Oh, okay.
I'm going with the assumption that it's a clear skies. But I'm saying that works in hand in hand for Detroit, because I feel like Detroit's almost like, we talked about this. They're almost like Miami. It's like, man, they got to go to like Lambeau or somewhere cold. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with
if
you.
If you're gonna be playing in the warm, it's kind of like, it don't really matter if that's not a dome anymore. I mean, we just kind of balling at that point. So I'm gonna still go with the 49ers in that game, but I would love to see nothing more than the Lions get to the Super Bowl and then that ruin the ratings for the NFL. I would love to see nothing.
Well, hold on. Speaking about ruin ratings, it's not going to ruin ratings because the Lions and who did they play last week? I'm sorry, I'm blanking out already.
The Lions and the Bucs.
The Bucs, yeah, Lions and Bucs. That was the highest rated divisional game in NBC for the last 30 years. And then,
man, folks just wanted to see some history, man.
Maybe they did, but like they would still want to see history if they made the Super Bowl. And then the Bills and Chiefs, I want to say that was the highest rated divisional game of all time. So like, I think the ratings would be fine. Like football, like it's just king. The ratings would be fine.
Yeah, I guess no matter what, I mean, the deeper you go into the playoffs, they're going to get people to watch anyway. I guess it really don't matter what it is. Like, what did we talk about? We like, what did we say the other day? Like, can you imagine we was talking about watching the Lions and Bucs and being locked in to a Lions and Bucs game? Like, just think about that statement.
And we were locked in. I know I was, and I know you were, because I was texting you just throughout the game.
Right. If I would have told you early in in preseason, I'd be like, man, I can't wait for that Lions Bucs game. You'd have been like, what are you talking about?
I would have said, also, Tom Brady came back.
Right, exactly. Like, you're like, what are you talking about? So it's just funny how that works. But listen, man, I'm excited for the games, but of course, that means we getting closer to football's over. But we're not gonna talk about that. We're gonna leave the sadness for the sadness. But let's get to some NBA trade because we're gonna obviously get on here and talk about the NFL, but then the bombshells happen. I'm a you know I'm sorry, Trey. I gotta hijack it. Let's start. Let me just start with the Heat trade. Let me start with the Heat trade, and
Oh,
we
the
gonna get this.
Heat.
Let me start with the Heat trade. Listen, I've told you about Terry Rozier. We've talked about this guy. So this isn't a random player that we didn't know that wasn't rumbling that wanted to go to the Heat. The Heat obviously get Terry Rozier. We trade a 2027 first round pick. Also, I think it's top 14 protected, I believe. So whatever. First round pick, Kyle Lowry's expiring contract. Let me just tell you this, Trey, as a fan that have gone to 2 Heat games in the last week. One of the Heat games, as you know, was against the very Hornets, where I watched Terry Rozier. And I remember, took my mom to the game, told her, I was like, man, you see that guy right there? I was like, I would love if he's on the Heat. And lo and behold, Trey, not a week later is this guy on the Heat. And listen, I just say one thing? We've been doing this podcast for about 4 years. And if one person knows how I used to feel about Kyle Lowry, it's you. I mean, I used to be disrespectful about Kyle Lowry before he was on the Heat. And you know that. And I'll be honest, I was. But I've done a complete 180 on Kyle Lowry. As a guy that likes watching basketball for a lot of the stuff that has nothing to do with the ball going into the basket, like the intangibles, I love Kyle Lowry. What he brings to the game, his IQ, his intelligence, his leadership. Also, just a really good playmaker, defender. I can appreciate that guy on my team. And let me tell you something. In those playoff games, in these playoff series, when we had him, yeah, was there a lot of other point guards I'd rather have? Yes. But I loved having the guy on our team because he came up with some big moments in versus the Knicks versus Boston, even whether he was healthy or not. And I would go into the foxhole with that guy anytime. With that being said, Trey, the man cannot shoot the ball to save his
And he's
life
cooked.
recently. I mean, yeah, and listen, he's an older point guard. It just is what it is. Like he's had a great career. We're not even talking about a guy in his prime, so it's not really like an indictment on him. I would have loved to see if he can keep him and bring him off the bench. But listen, he wasn't even necessarily happy with himself coming off the bench. And look, you got to move his contract. We get Terry Rozier, an athletic point guard that we needed on a team that we're a team that struggles to score. We needed a guy that can consistently push the pace. And listen, Terry Rozier is a blur. He can fly, and that's one thing about him. And when you go against all these point guards in the East, Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, Dame Lillard, you can't be. I ain't gonna lie, Trey. You can't be pulling up to the park with Kyle Lowry. I'm sorry, you can't. Like, no, I'm just being real. Like, you can't. And then they already lost Gabe Vincent. You just can't. Like, it
Oh,
was
he ain't
just. It
doing
was.
nothing though. You ain't lose Gabe Vincent.
Well, he's hurt. He's hurt. Let's be fair. Don't
But,
don't don't Kendrick none him
I'm
out.
just saying he's been a dud, so
Don't
you didn't lose anything
don't Kendrick Nunn him. I can feel that in the back of your voice. That Kendrick Nunn. Don't do him
because it
like that
is.
yet. don't
Where's
do it. No,
Kendrick
don't
Nunn
do him
now?
like that. Don't do don't do him like that. Don't do him like that. Don't do him like that. But I like the Terry Rozier trade for us. And they was asking for too much for DeJounte Murray. So I'm kind of happy with it. Now, you're the non-Heat fan here. What do you think about the deal?
I like it a lot. I don't know if it pushes you guys into the championship realm, but I mean,
It,
if
de-
I'm
it definitely puts us past the Knicks. I feel
It
that.
does. It does push you past the Knicks. And this second point I was going to make was I didn't really think you guys were a championship team last year, but you proved me wrong.
Right, true.
So, like, if the margin really is that narrow, then yeah, he does. He definitely makes your team better. Again, he's a guy that can keep up with the other guards in the league. He can score when you need to. Like even in isolation, he doesn't have to have somebody set up for him. And Kyle Lowry, at this point in his career, he really wasn't a good isolation scorer anymore. And that's something you need in the playoffs when things break down. So now you had Jamie Butler, Tyler Hero, and himself, Terry Rozier, to score in the isolation. That's going to be a really
Yep.
tough team to guard when things start to break down in the playoffs. My only concern
Can I,
is from a
mhm.
defensive perspective, I know we say he can stay in front of other guys, but if you have Terry Rozier, who's still a smaller point guard, and Tyler Hero, who's a smaller shooting guard with not the greatest athleticism in the world, I do wonder a
Mhm.
little bit about the defensive limitations on that team. But at the end of the day, you
Mhm.
still had Jimmy Butler. Even though he's older, he's still a really good wing defender. And you had Bam Adebayo on the back line. So I still think that they can make it work, but I still think there might be a little bit of growing pains early on, just from a defensive point of view.
I agree with that completely. My only response to that would be, well, hell, it can't get no worse. I mean, you had Kyle Lowry out there.
No, and
That's
that's a
my
true
only
point.
thing. So that was my only thing. And it's like if you're gonna be, a slightly better defender but a way better offensive player, I'll take it. And here's the thing: I think what it gives the Heat, Trey. It gives us defensive. It gives us versatility. There may be situations where Terry Rozier is out the lineup because we need defensive lineups in, and we have guys that can play defense. We have Josh Richardson, we have Caleb Martin. So sometimes that's where the coaching is going to be coaching, right? Like where he's got to mix and match it and kind of figure it out. And do you need to play Haywood Highsmith here and not Rozier here? Like he can figure all that stuff out. But it just gives us an element for a guy that can go give us a lot of times when we struggle to score, gives us an option. Now I did want to ask this before we move off this trade. How much better do you think DeJounte Murray is than Rozier? And I asked that because I know the Heat were trying to potentially go get him. I know the asking price was probably a little bit too rich for the Heat. Do you think there's a huge difference between DeJounte and Rozier just from a player perspective? And then, considering the money they're making, I just want to make sure I'm not looking at it too crazy as just being like a homer.
I think there's a little, I would say, a slightly decent difference between the two. But the way I would look at it is, what's the difference between Tyler Hero and DeJounte Murray? And at this point, DeJounte Murray, he
Mm,
hasn't played defense like he was when he was with the Spurs in years. So, like, from an
right.
offensive perspective, I don't really think there's much of a difference there. So, if I can get somebody who's a natural point guard, because DeJounte Murray is not a natural point guard, if I can get that in Terry Rozier, and he's still a good scorer, maybe not quite to the level of DeJounte Murray. Obviously, that's probably a lot of it due to the size limitations that Terry Rozier has, but he's still a really good scorer. I think when you look at it in totality, I think it more than enough makes up for getting Terry Rozier as opposed to DeJounte Murray, what you would have had to give up. I think there's
Okay.
a slightly decent difference, but looking at the team and the chemistry that they are projecting to have, I think it works out perfectly.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I figured the same thing too. I just wanted to make sure. And by the way, real quick while I'm on the note, because I did go to Haslam's retirement ceremony, Trey, I'm done with Paul Pierce. I'm done with Paul Pierce. I'm sorry. I just had to say it. Paul Pierce taking shots. I just want to say that. If you know, you know. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Paul Pierce, come on now. Don't do that.
Come on,
Don't
I'll
do that,
do
Paul Pierce.
it.
Don't do that, Paul Pierce. Don't do that. But anyway, all right. Let's talk about the Bucks, Trey. So I thought the Heat were gonna get the news all day. Then I look up the Bucks. They're firing coaches. They fire Adrian Griffin, first year coach. Obviously, there may be rumored to get Doc Rivers, who was obviously, if people didn't know, he was a consultant for Adrian Griffin, like kind of like informally, so kind of helping Adrian Griffin out. And now, he's on ESPN. Looks like they want him to coach. Before I give it to you, Trey, I just want to say this. As far as the Bucks, we should have known something was up as soon as the Bucks had hired Terry Stotts as the lead assistant coach, who was Dame Lillard's former head coach, and then all of a sudden, right before the season starts, he decides to leave. Now I don't know if it was because of family issues or anything specifically that came up in his personal life, but when that happened, that was a huge red flag, and I think something that we just kind of mentioned and then just never really gets talked about. But Terry Stotts obviously saw something that maybe didn't see something that wanted him to leave, but he didn't say something that made him want to stay enough. Maybe I'll frame it that way. But that's something I just wanted to put into your mindset, Trey, because we don't really talk about it too much, but that was something we talked about at the time.
Oh yeah, and that was definitely something that was, I guess, a bit awkward when I saw it. And like it kind of raised that red flag. Like, I wonder what's going on here. You're gonna get rid of Terry Stotts, or he's just gonna voluntarily leave before the season's even
Right.
started? And I'm talking about he's working with a rookie head coach. I was a little bit concerning, but
With his former star player, by the way, too. Like if there's a situation where you're actually familiar with the guy.
exactly, like that was he's coming into a new system. Like I thought that was gonna you're gonna try to make that work out, but it didn't, obviously. And like I said, that did kind of draw some red flags. But as the season went on, and the Bucks were playing well, I mean, there's a second seed in the Eastern Conference. I kind of just put that in the back of my mind and kind of forgot about it. And I didn't. I mean, the Bucks won the last 5 or 6 games, so like they haven't shown any signs of any kind of dysfunction. So like, I guess I'm just not really sure where this came from. At first, when I saw it, I was wondering maybe he had kind of like an email situation. Not saying it's exactly the same, but the situation where they didn't really want to talk about it, but something else other than basketball related went down. But nothing
Right.
like that has come out. So like, I don't really think that's what happened. I just think, as you kind of mentioned in some of our messages before we started the podcast, that Damian Lillard and Giannis weren't really feeling him. And this is a players' league, and the superstars run this league. And I just think that because they weren't getting along with him, the team just opted out to go a different direction.
I think Adrian Griffin was put in a tough spot. As a first-year coach, I always complain when coaches. I feel like I'm the gatekeeper for coaches being put in the right situation, because I really hate when I see a guy that I think is a good coach gets put in a tough spot where it's like a bad team. For example, I always bring up the Steven Silas thing with the Rockets. I don't know if Steven Silas is a great coach, Trey, but I mean, come on, he didn't
We'll
have
never
anything.
know.
Like, you know what I'm saying? We just will never know. So I don't like those situations. But the situation with the Bucks was weird timing wise. Adrian Griffin, Trey, remember, he got the job as already being one of the assistants. All right. And he beat out two former guys that had head coaching experience. After he has the job is when they did the trade for Dame Lillard. So I'm not sure if he even knew that they were going to get Dame Lillard, or if that was something even on the Bucks radar. So he kind of got thrust into this situation where you thought you were going to be on a contending team, to now you guys got Dame Lillard. Now you're all of a sudden the immediate favorite, immediate pressure on you. So tough spot to be in. Another tough spot to be in. You lose Drew Holiday, who's one of the best perimeter defenders of this generation. You're going to Dame Lillard. And look, Trey, with all due respect, he's one of the worst guard defenders in the league, right? And he always has been. I'm just calling it what it is.
And he's in his 30s now, so like it's not going to get any better.
And he's in his 30s. There you go. So he wasn't even a good defender in his prime. So that's a tough situation to deal with. And then, you got people basically trying to tell you how to run an offense. Like, well, why isn't Giannis and Dame running pick and roll more? And I think he's just in a situation where he was trying to work out the kinks. They're still winning games. Granted, it wasn't against great competition. I think one of the nails in the coffin, Trey, and I know people probably didn't see it as a big deal, when they lost to those Pacers all 4 times, I think that was like an indictment on what they saw, because they were like, yo, if we can't even guard the Pacers, what are we going to do when we got to play Joel Embiid? What are we going to do when we have to play Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle?
But let me pause you real quick for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be more of a function of personnel? Because this is a team that does not have Drew Holiday anymore. This is a team where Chris Middleton is not the same player that he was 2 or 3 years ago. So wouldn't that be more of a function of personnel than of coaching?
I would agree with you, but here's the only difference. Drew Holiday is the only guy you lost. Those other guys are not guarding the same anymore too. Even Giannis isn't playing the same level of defense as he was. So I'm not blaming. Look, Adrian Griffin can't be Giannis and play for him, but it's like, if everyone's regressing, if Brook Lopez is regressing defensively, if Giannis is regressing defensively, like, we knew the Dame thing was going to happen, but we can't have the whole ship like not playing defense no more. Like that's basically what was happening too. So it's like, at a certain point, he's got to make some adjustments. And it just may be adjustments that he's not sure to make yet, because he's a brand new coach on the fly. There's a million things he's got to worry about besides just the defensive scheme when you're the head coach. It's different when you're the main defensive coordinator and you're not the head coach, and you don't got to worry about lineups and this guy's unhappy about minutes and that guy's unhappy. So I just think he's in a tough spot. I think he's going to end up being a future head coach in another program, but I think it's just a tough situation to deal with now. Now, going forward, is Doc Rivers the best guy for the job? I mean, obviously we got to limit it. There's not even a lot of guys available, but what can Doc Rivers bring to the table, Trey, that Adrian Griffin couldn't, if he becomes the coach, which we all predict?
Well, I would say this, Doc Rivers.
Unless you want somebody, unless you see somebody else as a better.
Well, I mean, at this point in the season, I don't know who else you're gonna get. Like, I don't know. I mean, I really think out there, but I mean, like, who else are you gonna get? Like Mike D'Antoni, Kenny Atkinson, like Doc Rivers just might be the best choice that you have right now. But with that being said, I think Doc Rivers, he does have the experience, so he's not going to go through some of the growing pains that I suspect that Adrian Griffin might have been going through. And he has worked with star players before. You saw that with the Big Three Celtics. We saw that with the Clippers. We saw that with Philadelphia. So I think that, at least from an interpersonal communication standpoint, he'll be able to get along and communicate well with Dame and Giannis. So I think you have that going for you. But from a purely basketball standpoint, I'm just not so sure what else Doc can really do differently. Like I said, you did lose Drew Holiday. Chris Middleton from age standpoint and from an injury standpoint. He's not the same player that he was 2 or 3 years ago. I know you brought up Brook Lopez, but I mean, he's older now. I mean, he's been in the league forever, it seems like. So I just don't think the Bucks are quite as good as what we thought they were. I think that their record is indicative of where they are. Like, they're a really good team in the Eastern Conference, but they're probably not the top tier. You know, they're not Boston. I don't know if they're beating the Clippers or the Minnesota Timberwolves, if they were even to get out the East. Like, I think they're just a step up below the championship contenders. So I just don't know if Doc really pushes you above that.
Well, hold up. I mean, they're still a championship contender now.
Well, maybe not contender, but I would say contender might not be the right word, but championship favorites. Yeah, favorites. That's a better word.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, they may not be the favorites, but like, I mean, look, they still got Giannis and Dame. I mean, they can roll up in the series and, you know, make us problems. If I'm Doc though, Trey, I know I'd heard Doc, you know, we both listened to Bill Simmons. He was kind of talking about taking a year off. Oh, you got to take this job. Oh, you have to. I mean, no. Listen. He has got to take this job. It is not often that a job like this falls on your lap when you have one of the best players of all time in Giannis on your squad. Like, think about this, Trey. Think about it like this, Trey. How many times do you lose a job, you get fired, and your very next job opportunity is less than a year later, and your best player on that team is probably better than the guy you had before?
I mean, you can say that, but like, think about it. You Doc went from the big three Celtics to Blake Griffin and Chris Paul to Joel Embiid and James Harden. Like, he finds a way to get connected to these superstars. So I know what you're saying.
Okay, but can I be fair? And Giannis would be the best one.
Yeah, I'm not going to debate that. You're right.
At least based on where he's at in his prime and everything like that. He maybe Embiid, but I mean, obviously this Embiid level is.
Yeah, this is a little bit different.
Right. He just dropped 70 as we speak. but you know, you get Giannis with Dame, and you know we know Doc is good with stars. You got to take this job. I mean, you can figure out the kinks later. Take this job, and listen. If Doc takes this job, no one's gonna fault him if he don't get to the finals or anything this year. He'll be like, look, I just came in halfway through the year. Let me get an off season. Let me retool some stuff, and then next year let's go to work. So this is kind of a win-win if you're Doc, because you can come and be in the savior. And I mean, you really don't have to do much here. You got to make some tweaks defensively. Maybe they can get a piece before the deadline. You know, if I'm the Bucks, I'm like, yo, I'm making calls for Alex Caruso, Trey, like yesterday. You feel me? Like, I'm like, yo, I need a defensive guard by Dame. Because, like, listen, between Dame Lillard and Malik Beasley, I mean, come on now. That ain't going to cut it. That ain't going to cut it defensively. Like, it's just not going to cut it. So, I mean, I'm making calls for Alex Caruso, any of these defensive guards out here for sure. But if I'm Doc, I got to take this job. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But what would be the other options? Because I'm looking around the league, and I'm like you said, do you go with a D'Antoni? I mean, you're not going to really sign Kenny Atkinson. He's an assistant coach right now, so that usually doesn't happen until after the year. So, I mean, what's their options at this point?
That's the point, one of the main points I'm bringing up. Like, you're not going to go to Stan Van Gundy route either. We've seen that doesn't work anymore. So, I think...
you done with Stan?
Listen, that last stop, I think it just ran its course at this point. And if he wasn't able to get along with Zion and that New Orleans team, I really don't think that future Hall of Famers such as Dame and Giannis are going to be.
Looking back on the Stan, I'm like, Stan couldn't get along with Zion. We realized it might have not been a Stan issue.
Hey, fair point. Touche.
It might. Hey, Stan couldn't get along with Dwight. It might not be a Stan issue, Trey. Hey, Stan couldn't get it to work in Detroit. Who's got it to work in Detroit?
Okay, you might be right, but what I will say is I don't think Milwaukee's willing to find that out.
You know who they need to get?
Who's that?
They need to get his brother. They need to get Jeff.
Jeff ain't coming. Man, people been trying to pull Jeff out for 20 years. He's not coming.
Well, he ain't on TV no more. I think he's a consultant with the Celtics, I think now. But hey, man. Oh, I got one, Trey. I got one. Why don't they go get your boy Mark? Mark Jackson.
For whatever reason, I'm not going to. It seems like his name is kind of tarnished because his name doesn't even come out like he was suspected would. I don't know
Right.
exactly what happened, but hey, whatever it is, people are not dealing with it.
Yeah, Mark. I didn't think there would be a day I'll say, but like I don't know if he'll get a head coaching job
And he was
like
successful. That's
anymore.
the crazy part about it.
Yeah, I know. One shot, like legitimately one shot. You got guys that got 3, 4 shots in the league, and like that's it. So I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of NBA stuff we're gonna get into as we go along. But final predictions, Trey. So we both got the Ravens and 49ers in the Super Bowl, or anything gonna change that before we get out?
Man. I,
It's tough.
so I definitely had the Ravens. The 49ers scared me last week.
Yeah.
If Debo's not there, I'm picking the Lions. I know I hate to do the caveat, but if Debo's there, I'm going with the 49ers.
No, but you're right. That's an important caveat. But from all signs, I don't think he'll miss this game.
Okay, then
I
I'm
know
going
he's
with 49ers.
50-50. Yeah, so if we're going with the assumption that he's going to be there, I'm going to go with the 49ers. But I would love to see the Lions upset. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to come back next week and be wrong. I'll tell you that for sure.
Listen, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care anything in the world because like, at the end of the day, like I said, Jared Goff, he's playing a lot better, and I would just love him to kind of metaphorically spit in the face of the Rams and say, "Hey, look what you gave up."
Yeah, it'd be a great story for sure. But I want to thank everybody so much for joining us once again. Again, check us out. We're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube Shorts, anywhere you can think of, man. I mean, it's super helpful when you guys, give us a quick rate, a quick listen, even if it's for a second. Can't thank you guys enough. Got a lot more content for you guys coming. Stick with us. We'll bring some special guests back on. I know football season's coming to an end, but we got a lot of stuff we're going to get into. So keep tapped in for that. And of course, I'm going to swing it to Trey.
Hey, again, guys, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Again, we're on all the major platforms, so check us out. Again, stay with us, interact with us on Instagram. We really do appreciate all the love and support. But until next week, peace.
Peace.